I'd like to call the meeting of the Natural Resource Committee to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. And call to order. Pledge of Allegiance. Public notification of this meeting's been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act, correct? Before we do approval of the agenda, I'd like to take the roll of Mr. Dawson is here, Councilman Dawson is here, Mr. Rodman is here in person, Mr. Glover in person, and who else do we have online?
I have
Somerville.
Okay, we'll call the roll. Mr. Somerville, Councilman Herbersham, Councilman McClellan,
Yep.
and
Cunningham.
Cunningham. So we do have, and Councilman Herbersham.
Yes.
Is that it?
Thank you.
Total how many?
7.
Okay, and we do have a quorum. Okay. All right. We got all 5 of the committee members. 2, that's great. Full house. All right, I'd like to have a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So move.
All right, thank you, Councilman,
I'll second.
and seconded by Councilman Dawson. Is it by consensus? Everyone approves? Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. I hear a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman McCall.
Second.
And Councilman Cunningham made the second.
And I think we have Mr. Somerville's on here as well. We have 8.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Cunningham. So we have 8 in attendance, counting the chairman. Okay, all right. Do we have?
I'm missing somebody. I got 7, but who?
We have Councilman Somerville, Councilman Glover, Councilman Herbersham, Councilman Rodman, Councilman Howard, Councilman McEllen, Councilman Dawson, and Councilman Cunningham started there.
Okay. We have 8
8,
confirmed. Okay. All right. Without objection, the minutes of September 6th are approved. All right. Thank you. At this time, we will. Do we have any citizens' comments?
No, ma'am. No one signed up.
Okay. Thank you. Number 7 on the agenda is to recommend approval of an ordinance to amend the zoning map of Beaufort County to change 175 Fording Island Road. I'm not going to read the parcel number out until we get it up on the screen. From T2 rural to C5 regional center mixed use. And Mr. Merchant is going to present from the planning department. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Since we use the address, I can read out the parcel ID number, but you're going to show us where it's at too. So.
Yes, and this is one of the attachments to the agenda. As you had mentioned, this is a proposed rezoning or zoning amendment to our map. The current zoning of the property is T2 rural, and they're proposing C5 regional center mixed use. And to give some context to where this is on the north side of Highway 278. It's basically, you have Pepper Hall, and if you're moving toward Hilton Head, then you have a Mercedes dealership, a Honda dealership, and this is a vacant parcel that sits next to that. It's 4.25 acres. The properties directly to the west were rezoned to C5, or actually regional commercial in the old ordinance in the early 2000s. Originally, this whole area was zoned rural, but one by one, Pepper Hall and these 2 parcels were upzoned. And it sits between the C5 properties that are the 2 auto dealerships and Berkeley Hall, basically the maintenance entrance to Berkeley Hall. The applicant is proposing to expand the Honda dealership to add a maintenance building at this site. So they do have a proposed use that would accompany this zoning amendment. So backing up, this area in our comprehensive plan, even though the area is zone T2 rural, this is envisioned to be community commercial, which is a commercial designation, basically a tier below what they're requesting. However, when we look at the request, it is consistent with the surrounding zonings and the surrounding uses. So as far as staff reviewing this and consistency with the comprehensive plan, we recognize that it doesn't really match the underlying future land use designation and comprehensive plan, but it is compatible with the existing land uses. The other issue with this property, and I think we've included in your packet a conceptual master plan or conceptual plan showing what they intend to do with the site, is that this is simply an expansion of the existing dealership with no new curb cuts. And with that, it's going to have a much lesser impact than if this were a standalone commercial property that could be developed to the full potential of 4.25 acres. And so one of the recommendations that we have is that prior to third and final reading, that the applicant combine this property with the Honda dealership and that they use existing curb cut for access to the site. You know, we believe that that is a condition we could place prior to third and final, that if they, combine those two parcels, we can come back and report at third and final reading that that has occurred. So that our recommendation is approval with that condition. And with that, any questions that you have?
We'll open it up for questions. Yes, Councilman Cunningham, I saw his hand first. And Councilman
Is this
Dawson.
the Honda dealership or the Mercedes dealership? I was trying to look at that map. I couldn't remember which one was on the left or the right.
I believe it's
Closer to the new stoplight or farther away to the right?
It's farther away. It's by the Honda dealership.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Dawson?
Yeah, Rob, if we approve this request, then the little piece that's left, the TR2 that's left, why are we not making the whole thing C5, and then we won't have that little T2 rule spot?
Let me answer that, Rob.
Okay.
Yeah, so what I was going to say to council is that you all denied a rezoning on that same parcel a couple of years ago, that little sliver, saying it was not appropriate for it to be rezoned to commercial. So it'd be my recommendation is if you're going to do this, that you go ahead and make the decision to initiate the rezoning for the adjacent property. To make it all consistent, or we'll have a spot zoning right there, and you're going to be dealing with it in a matter of months anyway to rezone it. So you might as well go ahead and take care of it.
Okay.
And there's an existing house on that lot. It's kind of a holdover of, when that area was more rural.
Can you bring the map back up again?
Yeah.
So maybe you can kind of point that out to us.
Do you want the conceptual plan?
The zoning-
Or
The zoning map, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions? I see.
Yeah, you can
Councilman
see it on-
Somerville, Vice Chairman, Council Member Somerville has a question. Go ahead. You're on mute, sir.
Excuse me, my mute was on. Rob, do you know if this is contiguous to Bluffton, and if so, has it been requested to be annexed into Bluffton?
It doesn't appear to be contiguous. Across the street is the Island West PUD. I believe kind of catty corner to this, you have Buckwalter property with Bluffton, but I believe that smaller property is in the way.
Can you point out again the sliver that's T?
So if you see the red line around the property, it's not the entire green. That little sliver on the bottom map will remain, unless council takes action, would remain T2 rural and kind of sitting there by itself.
It's a question, would it need to go back to add that? Could we amend this at this time, or does it need to go back to?
Yeah, well, we would have to take that back to the planning commission, but we would appreciate you all recommending that council at first reading on this issue initiate that rezoning, and they'll track close together, but they'll still finish a month later than the current rezoning that's on the agenda today. So
Do we know whether that property owner still requests to be?
they want to rezone it. The house is vacant. They would like to sell the property for some type of commercial use. Nobody's going to live there with all the traffic there.
Would you like to make an amendment, make a motion with that?
All right. Madam Chairman, I would move that we approve the zoning request to, let me see, where are we?
Number 7.
On number 7, from T2 rural to C5 regional center mixed use, and also send this back to Planning Commission to consider the T2R parcel that's left in that space over there.
So we can move this forward.
You need a second.
We need a second. A second discussion. It was second by Councilman Rodman.
Okay.
Okay, discussion. So this one doesn't have to go back
No,
necessarily.
it doesn't have to go back to the planning commission. What you're going to do today is you're going to recommend approval of the rezoning to county council, and then recommend that the county council initiate the rezoning of the adjacent property at your meeting in October, on October 26th.
All right.
So, and then if that happens, then we will start the process of taking the adjacent sliver through the planning commission and bring it back to natural resources, but the current property will not have to come back through that process. It'll continue on.
Does Councilman Dotson need to change his
No,
motion?
no, everything's good.
Okay,
We're good.
we're good. All right, do we need to take a roll call vote on this? I see no objections to the motion. All right, this motion carries without objection. Thank you.
All right, thank
All
you.
right, thank you. All right, next up is going to be Mr. Davis. With number 8, recommend approval of an ordinance for a text amendment to the Community Development Code, Section 5.11.60, river buffer, to clarify penalties for removing trees from river buffer without appropriate permits. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
So a little quick background on this. We've had some text amendments that have been kind of come through by staff. We've looked at the CDC, and a lot of these have been in conjunction with the Planning Commission, and a lot of them have been focused on trees. I've noticed that this county loves its trees, so this helps strengthen that section of the code. Essentially, what this is doing is it's taking the language we currently have for penalties for removing trees without a permit, copying and pasting it and putting it in our river buffer section, but it does 2 things that are slightly different. One, it increases the penalty to 2 times the amount where the current is 1.25, and it requires the trees to be planted back in the space before you qualify for paying into the mitigation bank. Besides that, it's word for word.
Okay,
And with that, I'll take any questions.
any questions? Anyone online have questions? Yes, did you have a question, Mr.? Okay. So this will basically reflect the same as what we have
Correct.
in the other parts of the
It's just
CDC.
because it's the river buffer and the stakes are a little higher there, it kind of separates it out and increases the penalty and requires plant back prior to the ability to pay.
To pay the mitigation.
Yeah.
So you can't pay your way out.
Correct. That's
I'm
the biggest.
simplifying it.
That is one of the biggest differences.
Yes. All right, do I have a motion to, this has to go to full council too. Do I have a motion? All right, Councilman Rodman makes a motion. I have a second.
I'll second.
And Councilman Dawson seconds the motion. Any objections, discussion? No objections, this will move forward to full council. Thank you. The biggest turnout I ever saw in Port Royal of citizens was regarding a tree in Port Royal, so, as I'm sure some of you may have seen recently. So it's a county and a municipality's concern, that's for sure. All right, number 10 is a resolution to approve the amended Oyster Factory Park Master Plan. Oh, I did, I'm sorry, I sure did. I did, thank you. Number 9, can count. Recommend approval of an ordinance amending the Beaufort County Code of Ordinances, building regulations, section 74-64, adoption of the building codes to adopt the 2021 state mandated codes. And Mr. Atkinson, are you doing this one?
Good afternoon. Our Building Codes Director, Mr. Michael Brantley, will present this item.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. The South Carolina Building Codes Council has adopted the latest edition of the nationally recognized construction codes and appendices. The new codes will be implemented on January 1st, 2023. The South Carolina Code of Laws requires all counties and municipalities to adopt and enforce these codes with the approved South Carolina modifications. The latest edition of the codes include the 2021 International Building, Residential, Fire, Plumbing, Mechanical, Fuel Gas, the 2009 Energy Compliance Code, and the 2020 National Electrical Code. There are several hundred changes in the new editions, but the majority of these changes were small modifications for clarification purposes, just rewording of codes. The few new additions to the codes will not require any significant changes to the current construction processes. Some examples of the modifications the state does to each of these code cycles are: we are currently under the 2009 Energy Code, and we will remain on the 2009 Energy Code. The state considers the newer energy standards to be too restrictive and more relevant to colder and drier climates. One of the current changes is the residential code requires whole house surge protection, similar to the devices that you plug in your devices to. Well, the code's requiring a whole house. The state looked at this section and amended it out without exception, stating that you can be provided equal protection with these smaller plug-in style devices without the added expense of this new system. Another change that's still in effect, the 2009 residential code required fire sprinkler systems for all single-family homes and townhouses. The state has continued to modify this section out of the code completely for the added expense and is too restrictive. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Yes, some questions? Anyone online have questions? Now, these codes will apply if someone was renovating their house, a certain
Yes, ma'am.
percentage?
Any permit pulled after January 1 will be to the current,
Will
or
be
the
to the current
2021 codes and the associated codes. Anything that is current right now will stay within the 2018.
Okay, all right. Anyone have any other questions? That's interesting about the whole house surge and the fire. Were those the most?
Yeah, some of the electrical panels have had them in the main breaker for the last probably several years. And from what I've heard, they do their job, but you don't know if they've taken a surge. There's no marking on it to show, and it may only take one surge. That's it. Okay. Where your little small devices, they usually stop working if they get a surge. So
You know it right away. All right, we'll entertain a motion. Councilman Rodman, all right, a second to adopt these?
What would happen if we do not adopt these?
Good question.
yeah, it's state law mandated, so we
So
would
we'd be
probably lose
violating
any.
state law?
Yes, it's part of state law for all of us to adopt it, so we'd probably lose any support from.
I second the
State.
motion then.
You'll second the motion? Okay. Councilman Glover made the second. All right. Without objection, this will go forward to full council to recommend approval of the ordinance amending the County Code of Ordinances. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're on number 10. Number 10, the resolution to approve the amended Oyster Factory Park Master Plan, 2020 Oyster Factory Park Master Plan. I'd have trouble saying that fast, with reduced additional parking. And Ms. Nagy is going to present? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Good afternoon, Councilwoman Howard, committee. Stephanie Nadjid, past Parks Manager. I am going to try to get through 20 years of history in 2 minutes.
You can take all the time you want.
The Oyster Factory Park was acquired in 2003 through the Rural and Critical Lands Program. A conservation easement was placed on the property, which is currently enforced by the Open Land Trust. The park itself is actually comprised of 3 different parcels, 2 of which are owned by the county. Well, one is owned by the county, one is co-owned by the county and town, and one is owned by the town, I believe. We have an agreement with the town of Bluffton for improvements, maintenance, and management of the property, of the entirety of the property, as was executed in 2004, which included an original master plan. In that agreement, it states that if there's any changes or improvements before those can be done, the county is to provide written approval for proposals from the town for improvements on the property. There was an amendment to the conservation easement and master plan in 2015, which was approved. There was another amendment in 2017, which was approved. Somewhere during COVID, some miscommunications occurred, and the 2020 plan got approved by the town, but it was not brought forward to the county. So we are now looking at that plan. The town would like to move forward with some additional parking in the area of the property that is owned by the county, but that is currently treed open space. So it's just dirt and grass underneath a canopy of trees. It does get used on the weekends pretty heavily for overflow parking, particularly for non-trailered parking vehicles that drive in there, and golf carts for people there for events and for access to the river and boating. So the town would very much like to have a designated parking area. The 2020 map showed the entirety of that green space as being a parking lot. However, the Open Land Trust staff and myself had some concerns about the loss of open space, given that this is a rural and critical property. And so we wanted to reduce that parking down. So we met with the town staff on site, and Exhibit 6 is which was the one you just had up, is the reduced parking area. So it is a close-up of one of the pages of the plan that shows the engineer drawing for the parking area. And basically, a third of that space is going to go back to remain as open space. So you'll see the yellow dashed line is that line of the limit of recommendation for parking. So the parking will occur to the right of that line, and then to the left of that line will remain open space with a little ADA sidewalk there, so people can get from the parking area and the adjacent sidewalks into the picnic pavilion and the event area. We do have town staff here available if there are any comments. They did actually mention to me at the start of the meeting that the 2020 plan with the landscape plan with the pretty picture will be updated, and then the civil drawings will be updated if this is approved by county council today, and so then we'll receive that in our for our records as well.
And you said they're here, are they on Zoom?
Yes, no, they're here in person.
Oh, okay, all right. Let's open it up for questions first to council members. Yes, Councilman Rodman.
When you create the expanded parking and you've had some overflow in the past, is there a physical barrier of any type that would stop them from approaching into the new green space?
Right now, the entirety of the green space can be accessible when the gate is opened. So during events, as far as I understand it, the town staff do open that gate to allow for that overflow parking.
So we're okay with the use of that for overflow, is what you're saying?
we had agreed in the field that if it needed to be used for overflow due to an event, then that would still be an allowable activity. We just didn't want to create the entirety of the open space as a parking lot that can't be used any other day of the week. Yeah.
Anyone have questions online?
Just a quick question.
Yes.
Definition of, what is a tree house?
I am going to let the town of Bluffton staff answer that because I have not seen the full plan for the treehouse.
Come forward and state your name, please, so that we'll have it in the
I
minutes.
mean, I know what a tree house is, but is that a tree? That's what you're talking about putting here, a tree house?
Yes, sir. So the tree house there is shown on the master plan. So the definition would be kind of what you would traditionally imagine as a tree house, maybe a little bit more grandiose than what you and I had as kids. But yes, sir, that's the intention. There is a kind of a structure. Don't have a size or dimension just yet, don't have a design, but it would basically be around the canopy and kind of up into the canopy there to be able for people to go up into it and kind of
Are
see
you
out.
concerned about liability with the treehouse?
I'm sorry?
Are you concerned about liability with the treehouse?
I think that's certainly a consideration for sir. It's always something we're concerned about. with something like that, but
Your county administrator is.
right. And
This is it.
I think that's
Could
part.
you-
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry, could you state your position and name for our records?
Yes, ma'am. My name's Charles Savino. I'm a project manager of the town of Bluffton.
Is this treehouse on the county's portion of the property?
Yes, ma'am.
This is in your master plan,
It's in the master plan currently.
which
yes,
is
ma'am.
now under review by the county, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Because it was done in 2020, but the planning department, the county planning department had not reviewed it. Is that a true, I'm sorry, thank you, Mr.
Yeah, no,
Devitt.
it's okay. So the master plan would end up, because it's a rural and critical property, passive park, it would end up coming to me.
Okay.
It ended up getting routed to a different department that, and then didn't end up getting to me until just recently. So, the Open Land Trust has reviewed the 2020 plan, and it complies with their conservation easement terms. So the 2020 plan is for us to review and provide comment.
So it's still to be reviewed by county staff.
To be, yes, we're asking for approval for it.
Yeah, apparently we've already reviewed it. I was not aware. I was told it was just to add additional parking, and I said it needed to come before you all because, to me, this is a major issue. You're taking away property that was bought with the Rural and Critical Lands Program. You're putting parking on it in what's supposed to be a walkable area, but we want to take away the open space for the Oyster Factory Park and put in parking for more cars to be able to pull in there and things like that. And I have an issue with that. And now I really have an issue because I was not aware of the treehouse. I really have an issue with that. I'm concerned about that being on county property and what happens if a hurricane blows that thing apart or some child falls off of it. You all need to be aware that we're probably going to be pulled into any lawsuits that would happen with that.
Councilman Glover, do you have any other comments about that?
No,
That was
I
a good,
think,
that's a good,
Okay.
very good
I'm
comment.
fine with the discussion that's going forward. Yes, ma'am.
I think we'll have to, we're going to need to take a vote whether or not to take it forward or not for the additional parking, but the master plan's review is still to be determined, if I'm hearing staff in our is that correct?
We can have further discussions with Town of Bluffton staff on the additional elements at this time. My understanding is the Town of Bluffton has already hired the contractor to implement the parking plan, and so we are asking them to basically do a field edit to that plan. So we can move forward with an approval of the reduced parking plan and then work with town staff on the other elements of the 2020 master plan that are still a future phase.
And I think council even needs to approve the amended parking plan.
Yes.
On the property.
Yes.
Whether anything else gets done, you need to vote on
Right.
that. So-
Someone had a comment online? No? Okay.
I do that, providing, I see a minus of 15 car space and a minus of 12 golf cart space. What's the total car space that will be in the plan once those are removed?
Do you have that specific?
In the master plan, we had approximately 65 spaces, and without 65 in the master plan here, we had approximately 65 spaces scheduled. So 65 minus 25, 27. What would that give us quickly here?
That's half, almost half.
38 plus or
Less than
minus.
half.
Yes, sir. And without having some updated civil plans in front of me, that 38 plus or minus.
When I look at that, there are parking spaces there now, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
How many parking spaces currently there?
So the parking area that's currently there is, if you're looking at the 2020 master plan, it is the far right area that says parking area. Right now, it's just a gravel area with angled curb stops that is supposed to be non-trailered parking, but trailers use it during busy times, so it's angled. I had made a recommendation to turn that into 90-degree parking spaces so that trailered spaces couldn't use it and it could be non-trailered parking. The town staff was not did not like that suggestion. They had stated that their council preferred to use that as potential trailered parking. So it is there, and there's about 20 spaces there, but they're angled. If they did make them 90-degree spaces, you could probably fit 25 or 30 spaces in that section as well.
The trailers you were referring as boat trailers?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any questions from anyone online? Okay. Yes, Councilman
I do
Rodman?
make that motion, I'm sorry.
You didn't
Nobody seconded it?
Well,
Yeah, I do make that motion. The
go
motion
ahead
is
and
to
make a
reduce the removal of 15 and car space and 12 golf cart space. Is that which is a total of 27 parking spaces?
or would it be 30? Total of 38 is what new parking spaces?
Well, what I'm reading here on the draft, it said remove 15 car spaces
27.
and then 12 golf cart spaces.
So 27
For a total of
spaces.
27 spaces. That's the staff recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm supporting the staff recommendation.
One thing you all might consider doing to avoid confusion about this issue is table or defer this until your next meeting in November, until Bluffton can produce us a sketch that clearly shows exactly what they're going to be doing, because we just have a yellow line on a piece of paper, and then you all can evaluate at that point based on the details of that drawing. We will have issues with the tree house on the county property, I will tell you that.
Okay, so we need a motion to postpone it.
Okay, I move that we postpone until the next.
Councilman Glover made the motion to postpone it until the next national. And do I have a second with Councilman Cunningham?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All in favor of postponing?
Aye.
All right. This will be postponed until the November meeting of the Natural Resource Committee.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Thank you for coming, Mr. DeVito. Okay, we have two appointments. One is recommend approval of appointment of Stod McAllen to the Rural and Critical Lands for a partial term appointment expiring in February of 2023. This is a substitute Councilman Glover's district. The person lives in District 4, actually.
Oh, okay.
Do I have a motion?
You want to do all two of them together?
I would,
or you
yeah,
want
I
And
separate?
the second,
I would take the next three all as one motion.
all right, we're going to do 11, 12, and 13 together.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
All right, number 12 is appointment of Lucia O'Farrell to Rural and Critical Board from District 4 for a partial term. And number 13 is appointment of Wendy Zero to the Regional Housing Trust Oversight Board as a representative from Beaufort County for a 2-year term. persuade it to the Regional Housing Trust Fund. Had a motion by Councilman Glover
I'll second.
and a second by Councilman Dawson. Without objection, these will move forward to full council. At this time, we are going to go in executive session.
I move
And,
the executive session, Madam Chairman.
all right, we have a second?
Rights.
We have a second? Councilman Glover?
I second at this time if you could hold off on carrying out the motion.
Okay. We'll have
before-
discussion?
Yeah, okay, I'll second for discussion.
All right, discussion? Yes.
Yes, we're going into executive session to discuss some property, and we do have some family members in attendance. I just wanted them to be introduced before we go into executive session, that's all.
Sure. Come, if you wouldn't mind, come forward with Ms. Schaefer and this is called the Village Creekside PDR.
Yeah, this is just the first time we've had the pleasure of having landowners in attendance, so I wanted the opportunity to introduce them since they came. Okay.
That's it. They're not.
Okay, that's it. Y'all, please introduce yourselves on behalf of the Rural and Critical Program. These are two landowners from our project that we're discussing today. I wanted to give them the opportunity.
Okay, I am Ida Chaplin Stewart, and the landowner is my mother, Katie Days, on St. Helena Island, and she's just so ecstatic about wanting to preserve this land because it's been in our family for. My mother is 92, so it was there before she was born. And my grandparents, well, my grandmother died in 93 and she was 95. So I need not say a whole lot more. But my mother's hope is that the land stay intact. So because she's one of 11 and she wants us, along with all the siblings' children, to be able to come home because she wants them to know that Beaufort County, what used to be called Frogmore, is their home, and she wants them to be able to come and enjoy the beauty of Beaufort County. Like I call it, God's country.
So I want to just, I just want to make sure the committee understands now that you all are probably in jeopardy by going into executive session now. So I would recommend that you all continue this discussion on this issue in open session. There's really no reason for us to go into executive session at this point.
Okay. We'll take the legal advice.
Hi, I'm Robert Days.
Thank you, Mr. Days. All right.
Apologies. Like I said, that's new territory, but a great privilege to have the landowners present. And at this time, I assume I'm within my staff responsibilities to explain the project. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. Village Creekside PDR is a purchase of development rights project to be protected with a conservation easement on Village Creek on St. Helena. It is a 15-acre property, and it has been recommended unanimously by the Rural and Critical Board. You all saw this property a little less than a year ago for due diligence expenditures, and you all recommended approval as well. And it's staff recommendation at this time to recommend approval for the purchase of development rights at $348,750. I have a couple of slides. If you'd like to see the property in context.
Yes.
Okay.
That's appropriate, right?
Okay. So this is the larger aggregation of family properties right here off of Sea Island Parkway, Highway 21 on Village Creek. And I'm going to go to the next slide. We'll talk a little bit about the properties in particular. Every time we consider a rural and critical property, we look at what the green print as included in your comprehensive plan and adopted tells us about the property. You'll see the warm colors indicate high natural resource value. The oranges and the darker oranges there along the river provide suitable natural resource, suitable habitat for wildlife, for water quality, the other factors that the composite green print plan takes into account. These are some images from the property, the existing conditions today. The property is waterfront, like I said, 15 acres waterfront along Village Creek. It has a really healthy river buffer, providing opportunity for maritime forest, as well as some high ground upland habitat. The property has one dock on it today. And so just to explain a little bit about the specifics here, on the left-hand side of your screen, those are the 3 properties that are making up the 15 acres to be included in the conservation easement. Again, all waterfront properties with 3 parcels. The easement would treat them as one larger 15-acre parcel, so it's going to reduce the development potential on the 3 parcels, reduce the potential to build any docks, and therefore provide public benefit to water users on Village Creek, as well as the water quality in Village Creek, because building against the waterfront and fragmenting the waterfront with docks can have detrimental benefits. So the public benefits for this purchase, because of the opportunity to reduce the development on that 15 acres and reduce the docks and impervious surface going into Village Creek.
Can we ask you questions, or would you rather wait?
Absolutely.
So the 3 parcels total, 15 acres. Okay. Just
Yep,
make sure I
3
have-
parcels on the left-hand side. Landowner family members do own parcels adjacent to this property, and just for your awareness, we're having conversations with them about how to further protect the properties around them from, commercial uses. If they were to be upzoned in the future or something like that, it's not going to look like a traditional conservation easement, but those conversations are ongoing, and I just wanted to share that in the interest of full disclosure. They're not conversations with the Rural and Critical Program at this time, because the purpose of the Rural and Critical Program directs us to protect land with the purchase of development rights and conservation easement, and the waterfront properties are suitable for that purpose. But the properties around it, oftentimes when I present to you, we talk about the neighborhood, the conservation neighborhood that we're creating. I just wanted y'all to be aware of the family-owned properties in the immediate conservation neighborhood, so that we can achieve aggregate benefit over time. And if you go...
How many homes will it be allowed to construct on this property?
You read the mind of me when I put together these slides.
Okay.
So the property exists as 3 properties today. It would be consolidated into one parcel with no subdivisions to be treated as a large single property. There are 2 homes on the property, but no future homes are imagined. However, other structures like the ability to build a covered pavilion gathering place for the family is imagined. Again, docks, there's 1 existing, no future docks. And river setbacks, which is another easement term we talk about a great deal, is proposed at 250 feet. So that really protects a very healthy river buffer from Village Creek to add to that public benefit. You can go to the next slide. This opportunity is, I would describe as perfectly in keeping with the comprehensive plan when you look at St. Helena and the cultural protection overlay, as well as recommendations from the recent upgrade or update to the comprehensive plan. The verbiage described opportunities to use land conservation strategies to protect water quality and water bodies that are critical for cultural lifeways, as well as working waterfronts. Village Creek is a working waterfront as identified in the most recent comprehensive plan, as well as in the 2010 comprehensive plan. There are family cemeteries along Village Creek, and there are active water users. So protecting land and limiting the development of that waterfront is important to the public at large. This purchase would allow the Rural and Critical Program to be used to prioritize land conservation strategies and development to protect shorelines and critical habitat. So perfectly in keeping with the comprehensive plan. And the little orange circle kind of shows where we are. If you go to the last and final slide, this is a map from the 2010 comprehensive plan showing the same working waterfront really carried forward. So protecting this property is an opportunity to carry forward the goals of the county and the comprehensive plan for 2 decades now. And happy to take any other questions.
Councilman Ryder?
Yeah, with 2 homes existing, like with one burned down, can a home be replaced so it'll always be 2?
Yes, so those are just significant easement terms. As you all know by now, easements do specify a certain level of construction. So things can be replaced, similar with the dock. If the dock was damaged in a storm, it could be replaced.
And so we have a similar methodology and formulas that we typically use.
Absolutely, for impervious surface and.
Easements.
Yep, and we did review our easement template with the Rural and Critical Land Board last year, and these easement recommendations are within the norms, and we reviewed those at the board level when they approved this process, this project.
Other questions? Or anyone on Zoom that would have any questions? It's hard to, you're there, but it's a little bit difficult to know if you have your hand raised. No? Any questions from anyone?
Oh, I don't have any, thank you.
Okay.
Motion to approve at this point?
Councilman Glover?
Yeah, that's my motion is to approve the recommendation coming forward and to forward it to county council.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Councilman Rodman, second. Discussion? Any more discussion? Seeing no more discussion, without objection, this will go forward to full council. Thank you. Okay, thank you. All right.
Alice, the funding for this is coming out of rural critical land?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, anything else? We're not in executive session, so I will adjourn the meeting at this time. Thank you. How long do we need? 5 minutes before executive? Yes.